Mr. President, the question is a follow-up also on the Berlin meeting. I would like to know how would you assess the progress in the diplomatic side of trying to find a settlement to end Russia's war in Ukraine, and if you also plan anytime soon the meeting with Donald Trump, and whether you think that the commitments that were voiced by the European leaders could actually replace Article 5 and NATO accession. Thank you.
With the American side. Why? Because in our dialogue with America, we had several formats, several documents, and I believe there is progress in our dialogue. The question is, this is part of the negotiation process. Then the US takes the changes, certain points of ours, and communicates with the Russian side. So far, I have no feedback on our latest progress. I simply don't have it. I can't tell you what there is or what there isn't. But in the coming days, we'll definitely say. And I believe that the frequency of our meetings is also progress. That's how I perceive it for now. Maybe here, there's more optimism than realism, but that's our reality. We live by fighting for ourselves and believe that we will succeed in everything. Regarding security guarantees and the presence of European leaders, we do not believe that Europe should replace the USA. And we certainly regard US security guarantees in the same way, which will be Article 5-like, and we will not need European support. These are different things. And no matter what signals Russia is sending, and we understand them, they would like to exclude the presence of Europeans. This cannot be done. These are different things. This does not mean that Europe, if there is another aggression from Russia, will be able to fight with its presence. No one is saying this. The presence of Europe reduces the chances, the percentage of aggression from the Russian Federation. Certainly. The number of countries, the number of flags, so to speak, the large presence that is in the coalition of the willing in one form or another, whatever the number of any given country, these are great risks to starting aggression against Ukraine again. Therefore, Europe's presence is important to us. Now, when we say, with a backstop, with the USA, we are talking about intelligence and security guarantees, strong security guarantees from the USA, on which we rely. We can't provide all the details today. But when we talk about NATO's Article 5, we understand that it means an adequate response to aggression. And we will discuss these details with partners. What we understand is that it is a legally binding article.
First of all, you called the security guarantees that the US had offered a first draft in Berlin. The Americans are saying they will send it to the Senate to be ratified and make it legally binding. So what is it precisely that you still need to hear from the Americans on the backstop? What does it lack to turn it into from a first draft into something you're happy with or you're satisfied with? Secondly, on the loan, how important is it for you to get the promise of the loan now for your negotiations with the US? We know that you're under pressure on territory in the Donbass and Donetsk from the Trump administration. Do you need that leverage in those talks to show them that you have the funding to keep fighting?
Certainly, you are right that all these issues are interconnected. These issues are definitely interconnected. Money is needed for Russia and nobody can use these Russian assets as leverage against us. We want a solution, definitely, so this is not part of the negotiations. We want this tool to support us. We are more confident in the style of negotiations with such a tool than without it. And to the question of how you will last another year if you don't have money, there is an immediate answer. Such questions do not arise then. In the meantime, such questions are in the air. We want to remove all the excess and focus on the real reasons that can truly stop Putin. And where negotiations are truly difficult for us. Therefore, if the issue of finances is not addressed, the issue of Donbass will arise. Regarding Donbass. And these issues are connected for our partners. The East and security guarantees. I believe that the end of the war as a whole, and not just the land, but the end of the war as a whole is connected to security guarantees, because without security guarantees, it doesn't mean that it's the end. Then it's just some kind of pause, and when Russia decides, well, I'm ready to go with aggression again, it will go. That is, you must have such guarantees that clearly tell all the people of Ukraine, Europeans, investors, American businesses, everyone. People who live primarily in Ukraine, people who want to return to Ukraine, people who want to invest money in Ukraine, Europeans who want to see Ukraine as a member of the European Union. And for everyone, these are very important matters. What security guarantees will post-war Ukraine have? And here, it is definitely voted for, because nobody believes in the Budapest Memorandum or the Minsk Agreements 2, 3, 5, 8. One wishes for it to be voted for. But is it enough, you ask? I believe it is important. It's a detail that Ukraine has never had. No. There is a strong army there. And so, when we discuss security guarantees with the Americans, I am thankful to them for that. Our military discusses it. It's a matter of the quality and quantity of the Ukrainian army's equipment. And this is absolutely fair, it's something that can be seen, and at least the Ukrainian people very much believe in a strong Ukrainian army. And a strong Ukrainian army, a proper contract, salary, staffing, training, conditions, and, well, weapons. Above all, weapons. And there is the question, to which I still cannot get an answer. I cannot, it doesn't mean that someone doesn't want to. We just haven't reached this point yet. The question is about all security guarantees. When you do not have NATO, but like NATO, do you have security guarantees like NATO? Some say it might even be better. I don't know. I won't venture to judge. I will only attempt to assess one thing. The answer to the question is what the US will do if Russia comes again with aggression? What security guarantees will we have? How it will work? How will all the partners work? In what way? With what force they will stop Moscow? Specifically. I think this requires an answer. Let it be non-public, but it be fixed in some documents.
President Zelensky, back to the Russian frozen assets. We know that the Belgian government is the biggest opposition to this, and we know their reasons why. What did you say to the Belgian Prime Minister when you met him to try and convince him? And do you think you have been able to persuade him to change his government's position?
I had a one-on-one conversation with him, and I already had a meeting. It seems to me that I told him everything, and he told me everything. Whether it turned out to be productive, we shall see. We need a little bit of time. Journalist, at the last European Council meeting, European leaders agreed to meet Ukrainian financial needs for the next 2 years. That was set. Today, the Commission proposal on the repair loans is on the table. The question is, do you want this proposal to be approved for its own sake and for the message that it sends to the Kremlin, or would any other formula be acceptable as long as Ukraine gets the money? And secondly, what message do you have for those leaders beyond Belgium who are still skeptical about approving this very proposal? Thank you. Politics, well, someone is against Ukraine, no matter what Ukraine wants or does, someone is still against it, but these are their political prejudices, to be honest. There are several forms for Ukraine to receive funding. By and large, Ukraine needs to solve this issue today and secure funding. This is number one. As for the future, a more appropriate form is reparation loans. So that we all understand, and Russia understands, that it is guilty and will have to pay reparations. Undoubtedly, we are looking at this decision, today's decision. It is certainly fundamental because most of the money is in Europe. However, in any case, such a decision can also influence related decisions. Even if to a lesser extent, in smaller amounts, but here the principle itself is important, that the world supports giving money for the frozen various assets of the Russian Federation, for their aggression against Ukraine, giving this to Ukraine in one form or another. Therefore, today's decision might be positive, or God willing, that it will be positive, it will influence other states as well.
Can you spell out for us what it would mean if you reach next spring and this money is not signed off? What does that mean for Ukraine and its ability to not just fight, but function as a country? Thank you.
If in the spring Ukraine does not receive the appropriate tranche, which in the case of peace Ukraine will use for the restoration of our state, and in the case of the continuation of the war, Ukraine will use these resources for the following priorities. First of all, the production of drones. If this tranche does not arrive, Ukraine will significantly reduce drone production. For comparison, if today, regarding inexpensive drones that we use on the battlefield, we have approximately a competitive number. Relatively, the competitive level of such drones. With Russia, we will have much fewer. And regarding long-range ones, today we are using our capabilities, and they work the same way, but on our side, like the sanction packages on energy from our European and American partners. We are doing everything on our part to reduce Russia's energy resources. All of this simply will not be there. That's the answer.